Morning. Izzy Mendelbaum was once visited by the officer of the IRS, and he comes in. He has this delicatessen, and the officer says, "We're looking at your tax returns, and we have a lot of questions." He says, "What do you mean? $250,000 net profit? What's wrong with that? I have a family that helps me. We work very hard, long hours. We almost never close besides Shabbos. It's an honest living." The officer says, "Izzy, we're not concerned so much about your $250,000 net income. That's fine. Our issue is you have these business expenses. There's 9 trips from your delicatessen to Israel, you and your wife, another 6 trips to London with hotels, you and your wife. What kind of business expense is this?" He says, that we also deliver. In the Shabbos in between Pesach and Shavuos, we have 6 weeks from when Pesach ends until the next Yontif Shavuos begins, when we celebrate receiving of the Torah. And there's a custom among Jewish communities all over the world that we learn ethics of our fathers, Pirkei Avos. There's 6 chapters to this volume of Talmud, and each Shabbos in the afternoon we learn another perek, another chapter of this volume. Now, it's not just a Mishnah. Mishnah is very often Jewish law. It's the how-to of Jewish law. It predates the Talmud. It has a tremendous depth of nuance of Jewish law. But this section of Mishnah, Ethics of Our Fathers, is more of ethics, Jewish values, teachings of our sages of how we're supposed to behave and how a Jew is supposed to live his life or her life. And I want to share one of these Mishnahs from the first chapter, which we're starting to learn this Shabbos, and understand it a little bit, and then glean some lessons for ourselves in how we're supposed to live our lives according to the Torah. The chapter begins telling us how did Torah, the process of Torah coming from Moshe all the way down to the Jewish people, and how did it technically work? How was it transmitted? Moshe received it from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai, from Hashem, who gave it over to Yeshua, to his dedicated student, who later would become his successor, Joshua. And Yeshua gave it over to the elders, who gave it over to the prophets, who later transmitted this to Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, the men of the Great Assembly. Following them, there was an era called the Zugais, which means the peers. Every generation had a peer. This is just before the Mishnaic era. They had peers of 2 leaders that were leading the generation. And the Mishnah tells us about one such pair, Hillel and Shammai. And Hillel tells us, which, by the way, they were students, disciples of their teachers, which were Shmaya and Avtalyon. Shmaya is actually a common Jewish name today. Avtalyon, maybe not so much. Hillel as well. Shammai maybe a little less, as we'll soon see. But also, it's a name that is used. The Hillel tells us as follows: Heve mitalmidav shel Aaron, be from the disciples of Aaron, meaning follow in the ways of Aaron. Aaron was a person who was ohev shalom, he loved peace. Not only did he like it as an idea, but he pursued peace. And bring the Jewish people closer to Torah, which sounds like a great thing. Be nice to people, be friendly, and bring them closer to Torah. Question is, why are these two connected? Why do we connect being nice to somebody and bringing them closer to the Torah? Why can't we just say that there is a proper value and the right mitzvah is to be nice to people? So you're nice to them. Why does it have to be? It sounds like it's a strategy. Because we want to get people more involved in Torah, and we want to be people should be involved in religious life, and we believe this is the way to live. So here's what we're going to do: we're going to go out there and be kind, And then this way, we're going to be Makarvan Torah. We're going to bring them into Torah. I get this question here often, right? F.R.E.E. does a lot of good things, thank God, and I'm honored to be part of it. A big part of what we do is helping people, financial assistance, job placement, guidance, crisis intervention, and so on. And there's another big part of what we do, and that is teaching, learning, Hebrew school, educational opportunities, synagogues, and so on. So is one to say, and people ask this, that the reason why you're going out there and trying to be kind is because it's a hook to get them in. We don't say that, God forbid. You want to be kind and help a person because they need to be helped, or because you have to be kind, because there's a lack that has to be filled. But Aaron, when he puts it together, or when Hillel quotes Aaron and he says, love your fellow, or love creatures, love creations, bring them to Torah, it's literally telling you, or it's implying, that one will lead to the other. I want to talk about that a little bit today. But what is the ways of Aaron? Aaron had, in a little bit more details, Aaron had a custom. Whenever he saw two people that were fighting or they were in an argument, we have this in our own lives perhaps. Sometimes you encounter someone shares with you that, our friend did this and this to me, or he said this and that to me. I'm very upset. Very often it's a misunderstanding. Something wasn't so clear. He didn't mean it. He took it the wrong way. But he's upset. You have two choices. You could either try to calm him down and explain to him that perhaps he was in a bad mood. It's not as bad as you took it. It's not nice, but he's not your enemy. And spin it. Or you could do what people do often, unfortunately. They could fuel that fire and say, you're right, they're wrong. Don't give in this time. It's about time you show them who you are. Teach them a lesson. You're doing us all a favor. So you're turning this seemingly minor and perhaps major argument into a bigger issue and creating it and fanning the flame. Partners have issues. People are doing something together or living together or working together. Things come up. They tell a joke about two partners, business partners, that went out for lunch. And during lunch, one partner turns to the other and he says, hey, I forgot to lock the safe in the office. He said, who cares? We're both here. People have their thing, okay, so they don't get along with each other. Something happens, you don't have to fuel it. So Aaron was the exact opposite of what I just described. Aaron went, and when he heard that two people weren't getting along, he would talk to one of them and say, I met your friend, whether it's your spouse or it's your business partner or your neighbor, and I asked them what's wrong, and they told me that they feel very bad because there was some kind of fight or an argument with the two of you, and they wish they never said what they said, and if they could only take it back. And the person listening says, really? That's what my partner said about me? Could it really be? And yeah. And he creates, instead of fueling this fire, he's calming him down. He's actually telling him that your friend feels bad about what happened. He takes responsibility or doesn't, but he feels bad. And then when these two friends would meet, they would embrace. There was already a very, very good feeling among them. It was all air. But so much of arguing and so much of not getting along is misunderstandings, is air. Not to say that every issue is nothing to it. Very often there are issues and they should be resolved and worked through. But let's not build it, grow it. Let's try to calm it. Let's learn from Aaron. This is what Hillel tells us in the Mishnah, Ethics of Our Fathers. Be like a disciple of Aaron. Follow his way. It's a very good way of living. It brings peace among people. Be the person that loves peace and pursues peace. There's another thing that he used to do. Aaron. Sometimes you find out that someone in your neighborhood, maybe it's a relative, a child or a youngster, or it's a neighbor or someone that you know from around, they're misbehaving, they're doing something wrong. And everyone's starting to eye them a little bit and maybe avoid them. And Aaron had a custom. If he knew that there was, let's use an example, a young man who started to pickpocket, he's shoplifting, he's stealing, he's doing petty crimes. He's misbehaving. Aaron would walk up to this person, give him a big smile and a handshake, and ask him how he's doing, and talk to him almost like a peer. Now, consider the fact that Aaron was Moshe's brother. He was the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, representing all the Jewish people in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple. And he's standing there and asking or inquiring about the life of this young man as if he's a great guy, ignoring the fact that he knows of the terrible behavior that he's displaying. He walks away. This fellow, this youngster, thinks to himself, wow, if only Aaron knew what I'm really like, he wouldn't talk to me like that. He looked down at me like, who are you? And it gave him this type of feeling of at greater than I really am. Or this great rabbi, Aaron HaKohen, sees me for something that I'm not. And it motivates the person. And he decides, maybe I shouldn't pickpocket, maybe I shouldn't shoplift, maybe I should behave a little bit better, because it's a difference between telling somebody you're bad, stop behaving that way, or telling him, I expect better from you. Right? Someone's speaking to their children. You could say that you're being very wild, and all it does is tell the child that you're wild. Or you tell a partner or a spouse or a friend you're mean. All you're doing is creating this feeling of meanness. Okay, if I'm mean, I do mean things. But you say, for someone like you, I'm disappointed in a child, for example, that you're misbehaving this way. You're such a good kid. That has a much better impact. You tell a person, we get along so well. What happened? I must have misunderstood something. So Aaron's attitude was when he treated someone who was, quote, a criminal, someone which was misbehaving, doing the wrong thing, he gave them his full attention. He treated them with a lot of respect, and it brought about within them the feeling of, hey, I should really be better. I'm almost ashamed that Aaron shouldn't find out of what I'm doing. It's a different strategy. But again, it's the process of love, peace. Love this way, pursue this way. This is really the way to do it. By the way, Hillel's partner, if you will, the other sage of the time, was Shammai, who had a very different approach. Between Pesach and Shavuos, we count Sfira, and I hope to discuss this in a later class, but the ideas of the various elements of the characteristics of our soul and different emotive qualities that we have. And there's people that exemplify or are stronger in chesed and kindness. Hillel was one such person. His soul, our sages tell us, came from the source of chesed, of kindness, which is the right side of the Shekhinah, of godliness, of divine presence, and therefore his tendency is much more kind. Shammai came from the other side, if you will, the other direction, which was much more gvura, strict. I don't want to use the word mean, but let's call it disciplined, exacting, strong. And we're told the following story. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us that there was once a potential convert, a non-Jew. He decided he likes Judaism, he likes Torah, he likes Jewish life, he wants to become Jewish. So he goes to the greatest of sages in his time. He goes to Shammai, knocks on his door, gets an appointment, and says, Rabbi, convert me. I want to become Jewish. Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot. Okay, he lifts one foot, he's standing on a foot, hopping, and he says, teach me the whole Torah. So Shammai chased him away. Now, one of the prerequisites of becoming Jewish is sincerity. You're standing here making a joke. You're going to stand on one foot and learn the whole Torah. What do you think this is? People spend a lifetime studying and they don't learn the whole thing, and you want to learn it in 1 second. But he sent them away. So this fellow was not deterred, and he went to Hillel, the other great sage of his time. And he comes to Hillel, he gets an appointment, he comes in, and he says exactly the same thing. Teach me the whole Torah, I want to convert. While I stand on 1 foot, give it to me. He says, while you stand on 1 foot, you want the whole Torah? Sure. Man, what's hated unto you, don't do to your friend. Zil Gemara, go study. The rest is commentary, go study. Same question. The response was completely different. His response was, really? Good idea. I'll give you the whole Torah in a synopsis. Don't do to your friend what you don't like to be done to you. Now, there's different levels of loving a person. There's different levels of caring, of kindness. I want to share with you, we asked the question of who are you supposed to love? Only good people? Bad people? All types of people? Should you have Avos Yisrael and care and compassion for everyone and be kind to each type of person? Maybe only good people, righteous, holy? What's our attitude supposed to be? So they say that Reb Zusha of Anapoli, the student, the disciple of the Maggid of Mizrich, great Hasidic master, when he looked at a person, he didn't see bad in another Jew. Even if the guy was wicked, he was a terrible person. Somehow, his love was so great for him, he didn't even see the bad within him. It's like someone looking at a child. Sometimes they're blinded by the deficiency or the problem, and it's not a good thing. You have to see the problem to try to correct it. But sometimes a parent looks at a child and doesn't even see that they're doing something wrong because the love overcomes the negativity. Or sometimes two people are in a relationship and they're so blinded they don't see the shortcoming or the warning sign of the other person. But Rabbi Zusha of Anapoli had such a love for his fellow Yid that he didn't even see that the person was bad. That was the level of his Avos Yisrael. That was Zusha of Anapoli. Rabbi Levi Notik of Berditchev, it says, had a different level of Avos Yisrael. When he would look at a person, he saw the negative, but he always tried to twist it and find a good side to it, a redeeming factor. For example, he was once standing outside his shul, and there was a coachman getting ready to go on a trip. And the coachman, let's just say, their hands tend to be somewhat oily, and they're dealing with horses and attaching horses to wagons and fixing axles and whatever else. This fellow is standing outside with a talus and tefillin. He should be davening. And on one hand, he has a siddur, and the other hand, he has a brush with oil, and he's oiling the wheels for in preparation for his trip. And most people look at him and say, like, what? Where's your decent respect? Basics. You're praying to Hashem and you're oiling. But Rabbi Levi Notik of Berditchev looked at this person and he lifts his head to heaven and he says, God, look at your people. Even while they're oiling the wagon, they're davening. So instead of saying, how dare you oil your wagon, which be involved in such coarse, dirty, so to speak, work, while you pray to God, and it's true, we should have, Rabbi Levi Notik of Berditchev said the other way around. Even while he's doing something for his wagon, he found the ability to pray while he does it. So it's different than Zusha of Anapoli, who didn't see the negative. He saw the negative, but he managed out of his love to twist it and say in a advocating factor in front of Hashem and say, look, he's such a good person. Look how dedicated he is. Even when he's going about his own business, he's praying. The Alter Rebbe was even a greater level than that. The Alter Rebbe had Avos Yisrael for a person, seeing their faults, not finding necessarily the redeeming factor in it, and still loving them. It's not because I see a different side to you and therefore I love you anyways. Or I love you so much I don't even see the negativity. I see the negativity and I know your problem and I love you anyways. That's the level that a person has to have Avos Yisrael. You're not condoning their behavior. You're not saying it's okay, but we touched on this yesterday. It's a feeling of one family. It's one unit. Look at yourself. You don't love yourself because you're smart, or because you're successful, or because you're talented, or you're a nice guy. Because it's you. So the nature is that you love yourself. Hopefully, excuse me. That's the level of love we're supposed to have, and that's what Hillel is advocating. Be like the students of Aaron, that even when someone did something wrong, he brought them together. He showed the person there's good within you. Focus on that. Don't have any of these conditions in order to do so. The value of another Yid, it's tremendous. We have a mitzvah in this week's portion, Torah in the Parsha. The mitzvah says as follows: that you should go in the ways of Hashem, v'chai bohem, and you should live with them. Okay? Shmartem es chukosai es mishpatai, you should keep my laws, as it's in Perek Yudches, chapter 18. You should keep my laws, my statutes, go in their ways, and v'chai bohem, you should live with them. The Gemara in Yuma, the volume which talks about Yom Kippur, Daf Pehei Amud Beis, page 85, second side, tells us as follows: you should live with the mitzvahs and not die with them. What does it mean, don't die with the mitzvahs? that if a person has a situation, for example, it's Shabbos, and someone's sick, and they have to be taken to the hospital, don't say, well, driving is prohibited. Calling the doctor is forbidden. Carrying outside is a no-no. So I can't go now and take him to the hospital. No, we say Torah is meant to live by it, and therefore violate any mitzvah, even in order to save a person's life, violate any mitzvah. So you could have Aaron HaKohen, the holiest, the high priest, representing all the Jewish people, on Yom Kippur, in the Beis HaMikdash, by the Holy of Holies, and he finds out that there's a little kid that needs some emergency. It's a life and death situation. He has to do whatever it takes, whether it's cooking on Shabbos, or eating on Yom Kippur, or pizza on Pesach, or violating any law. Go and save the person's life. Right? There's the 3 no-nos. Don't kill, murder, idolatry, and adultery. But other than that, the mitzvahs, do them and save the person's life. The Chassam Sefer says a beautiful word. He says like this. Think about it. What's the greatest accomplishment in this world that ever happened? What's the greatest thing? Anyone? By the way, anyone watching on YouTube or Facebook, you're welcome to ask questions. You could post comments. If you're watching on the replay, I'll be happy to respond to the comments. So, what's the greatest accomplishment in this world? It's creation of the universe. Hashem created the world. It's the biggest thing. Nothing even comes close to it. The vastness, the greatness of the universe, it's creation. How many words does Torah use? How many words does Torah use to describe it? How many verses, I mean? How many? 31. The whole creation of the entire world, which we still haven't discovered it fully, there's 31 verses. There's something which seems to get more attention than that, and that's the building of the Beis HaMikdash. When it comes to building the Beis HaMikdash, what do we say? It's like 270 something psukim, verses. Way more. And it was a very nice home for Hashem, a mini temple in the desert, but it was a tent. A nice one, but it was a tent. It wasn't creation of the world. And yet the amount of the thing, it's almost 10 times more. And Torah, every word is specific, and every verse has to have meaning, and even an extra letter teaches us many laws. So here you have this entire verse, this entire section about creation of building of the Mishkan, and we say seemingly it's greater or more valuable to Hashem than creation of the whole world. 31 Pesukim, verse 270 something. There's a pasuk that says Hashem created the Beis HaMikdash. We use the world. It says with one hand. One hand was used to create the world. When it talks about the creation of the Mishkan, it says 2 hands. It's a very great thing. It's Hashem's home. But there's something greater than that, and that's Shabbos, because the Torah tells us that even though Shabbos is very important, you can't break Shabbos in order to build the Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan, the temple, the tabernacle. Let's say it took 2 months to construct, to plan everything, and to all the materials that went into it, and so on and so forth. A while. And then you have Shabbos, and we're building Hashem's home, which has 200 plus psukim more than creation of the world to describe it. It's very special to him. 2 hands versus 1 hand. Yet we say Shabbos trumps that. Shabbos is greater. Don't break Shabbos. And yet, when it comes to Shabbos, we say there's something greater than that. Know what it is? The life of a Jewish person. The human who is in danger, we say, break the Shabbos to save his life. Right? It's like the joke of the couple gets into a taxi. She had to give birth on Yom Kippur, and you have to go to the hospital. So they called the taxi service somehow, and they came. As they get into the taxi, they go to the hospital. They hear over the radio, the dispatcher says, "Did you pick up those racists yet?" It's racists. And the guy explains. He says, "Well, they called in and they said we want a non-Jewish driver to take us to the hospital." So the dispatcher is asking the driver, "Is it those racist people? Did you pick them up yet?" But the idea is that you have the mitzvah that even though Shabbos is so great, you can't violate that even for the building of the Mishkan. We say violate Shabbos to save another life. It's the value that Torah places on life in general. We focus. There are unfortunately other religions that they worship death. They focus on the next world, and this world is only a stepping stool to get there. Yiddishkeit, obviously, there's a second world. We believe that neshama is eternal, but our focus is on this world, on making it a better place, and we value life. And by the way, not just life, which we say is worth, quote, living. Every moment, even if you're dealing with someone that's not well, God forbid, and the doctors say they only have a few minutes to live, you could still break the Shabbos to save their life. Because it's a life. Whether it's 1 minute or it's a century, it's a life. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the status. Alive is alive. It's the value that Torah places on it. Well, let's go back to Hillel and Shammai. Hillel says, love your fellow, pursue peace, be like a disciple of Aaron, pursue peace and bring them closer to Torah. Love the creatures, love the creations, and bring them closer to Torah. Is that the goal? Is it a hook to get them to Torah mitzvahs? If we're so valuable, if we have this inherent holiness to ourselves, which is beyond any sin that we may or may not do, we have that value, and you have to love every Jew, regardless if they're good, bad, or indifferent. It's family. Obviously, so love your fellow like yourself. So, what's this idea that we say, bring them closer to Torah, the karvan of Torah. This way, they get closer to Torah. Really, that's what it's about. Is that I'll bring them? What if you don't bring them closer to Torah? So that explains a fascinating thing. You have to help the person regardless of bringing them closer to Torah. The goal here is not to hook them. However, if you want to truly help the Jew realize their potential and deepen that connection that they have with Hashem, bring them closer to Torah. In other words, part of the love for one another is help them realize who they are. It's, by the way, we're not out there trying to convert people, but someone that's Jewish, you want to help them to get more in touch with their Yiddishkeit. And that's not why we're being nice to them. We're being nice to them because we need to be nice to them, and they need to be helped. One of the things that you want to help a person, if they're willing, is to help them be deeper connected and more involved with their. In other words, the connection you have with Hashem is greater than anything you do or don't do. It's who you are inherently. It's your nature. At the same time, you could develop that, deepen that. It could become much, much stronger. Okay. Reb Zalman Gurari was in 771 at Simchas Torah, and he was holding the Torah, and they were dancing, and it's very pushy. Thousands and thousands of Chassidim want to hear how the Rebbe is, want to see how the Rebbe is dancing, and this elderly Chassid was holding a Torah, and he had a heart issue, unfortunately, and he felt that he was going to drop the Torah. He was collapsing, and everyone was like, the Torah, let's grab it. God forbid it shouldn't fall. And the Rebbe was motioning him, grab him, make sure he doesn't fall. Okay? So we're looking at the Torah, but there's a person holding the Torah. He's an elderly person, and he's not well. Let's make sure he doesn't fall. So it's not only about, be Ahavas Yisrael, love the creations, and Mekarvan the Torah, bring them to Torah. And we're not being nice in order to bring them to Torah.
But how to reconcile it? If person fell and he got up, if Torah...
One second. If a person falls, if it's an elderly person that has a heart condition, it's an issue. Point is, we have to save both. And there was a lot of people around. It wasn't an issue. But what's the focus? It's like you forget about the person, and that's like there's a person there. And this is natural instinct. It's not that you can't take out a book and decide what to do. It's that feeling that a person is stuck. You go help them. And everyone is running. But you're talking about the practical application of it. I'm talking about the instinctive reaction. When someone's holding a Torah and he's shaky, and everyone's saying the Torah, the Rebbe says the person. They're not contradictory, but don't forget about the person. So in summary, just to clarify this, Aaron is not implying help people because you could bring them closer to Judaism. That doesn't have to be the goal. Help them because they need help. And even if they left Judaism and they don't want anything to do with it, they're anti-Judaism, help them anyways. Okay? There was a person who was very involved in Jewish life, and then he became very anti-religious. He was writing articles and very destructive. He was living in a certain state, and the Rebbe once called the Chabad emissary there, and when they were talking, he said, "How is this and this person?" He said, "Him? I have nothing to do with it. I don't know." He's like, "You don't know? What do you mean?" "Oh, he's not involved in the community." And the Rebbe knew that. The Rebbe said, "But does he have a job? Is he okay? Like, is he making a living? Is he supporting his family? Is he healthy? Like, what happened?" So let's be like Aaron. Let's pursue peace and help them deepen their connection to their spirituality and their godliness. Not in order to. That's one of the ways how you help them. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please comment, like, share.
But we've been educated in the context of religion that they say if somebody is not religious, they go for Torah.